Hey gang, welcome, come on in. Let's talk about body sculpting, AKA body forming, AKA body contours. All those names equal down to how are we gonna make an armrest and a belly cut in your electric guitar body. So at this point, we have our slab, if you will, kind of our cutting board shaped guitar thing, right? We have our body. Let's get to the point already. We have our guitar body. With this, before we do any kind of routing, doing the corners or any sanding or anything like that, I like to do that body sculpting and forming stuff. So, we have two things we're gonna do. We're gonna do an armrest and we're gonna do the belly cut. So let's talk about what those mean and how we're going to do those. So an armrest is exactly how it sounds. So if we look at this body, you can see how we're looking at it from the bottom. Okay, I'm up at the neck. Here's my armrest. So you can see we're starting in not even a third of the way of the body. Okay, kind of the bottom quarter or so of it. And then thickness-wise, we're going down to about half the thickness of the body or 2/3 and leaving a third, okay? We're removing a good amount of material here. And that's our armrest or our arm relief. It's exactly what it sounds like, that when you're playing, your forearm is rubbing against there instead of it going against a square corner like on here. Now, some guitars have more of an arm relief or armrest than others, all right? You wanna make it that's comfortable. Now, the other thing I don't want you doing is saying, oh, I did enough, when deep down you're just being lazy, okay? Don't do that, all right? Take the extra 10, 15, 20 minutes and make it right, make it comfortable for how it's gonna be, okay? So double check with your teacher about that. The other thing is then our belly cut. And if we look at this one, it's from here all the way up to here. This one's really large, okay? This is really kind of going to an extreme with the belly cut. So it doesn't have to be this big. I would say in between my hands here is what people typically do. Instead of it being just cut off, like where my pointer fingers are, you would bring that up and round that out more. Okay, so this example is a real extreme. However, this is super comfortable against my rib cage area for when you're playing. Okay, and that's the idea. So same thing with my arm, that it's not on a square corner. I don't want this square corner here up against my body. And again, just like with the armrest, some guitar models have more than others, just like I showed you on that Strat style body, this black one here. Okay, so different ones have different techniques or philosophies with it. Whatever shape you're doing, it doesn't matter, okay? Take out some material, get a little sweaty, make it comfortable, make it look good, all right? So now as we cut to the next part, I'll show you some tools and we'll talk about how it is that we're actually going to do this. Let's talk about what kind of hand tools you can use to achieve those two contour cuts in your body. I'm going to start with kind of beginning ones all the way up to what I use, okay? So we're going to start with kind of simple rudimentary things and then work our way up to my favorites, if you will. And I'm just showing you hand tools here, okay? That's all we're going to worry about right now. First one we're going to do is these cheese grater looking things, not tree grater, cheese grater looking things, a rasp or forms, maybe they're called, bunch of different names for these. You could also call them sponge ruiners if you were using a sponge to try and clean it. It's an old Mitch Hedberg joke from back in the 90s. Mitch Hedberg, R.I.P. He was a stand-up comedian, if you didn't know. All right, next thing I'm going to show you these are two small hand files. But anyway, these two, if I show you this one, it is kind of a rectangle, right? It's flat on all four sides, whereas this one is kind of what'd you call that, curved on top? Concave, is that the right word? So this one's good for when you're getting into areas that are concave. So like in here, when you're trying to form that, it works well for that. Because if you're trying to get in there with something square, you're going to leave a hard edge or a corner where that corner of the file is. This is more of a professional woodworker's file here, but if you notice with it, it is coarse, okay? We are hogging out material here. We're not trying to be super delicate. We just don't want to go crazy with it, but we don't want to be here with something that's super fine with small teeth that's going to take us forever. We don't want that. All right, so this file I like works really well because it is flat on the bottom, but then has that concave, I think I'm saying it wrong. It's a convex. Have you been sitting there saying, it's convex, Mr. P? Because concave means cave, right? And you think of a bear. Remember the bear in Back to the Future 3 chased him after he found out there he ripped the fuel line? It's a tangent. So maybe convex. I should probably know that, right? Let's look it up. Let's do that for homework. All right, so I do use this. This one works well. But then the last thing I'm going to show you, my favorite. This was sent down from the heavens. This is a Shinto rasp from our friends over in Japan. And a Shinto rasp is awesome. Number one, the handle's super comfortable in your hand. And this little part up here that you can hold it as you're using it. It has a coarse side, meaning larger teeth. And then it does have a finer side, meaning smaller teeth and more of them. The downside to this is where you're using it. For the armrest, these work awesome. When you're doing that belly cut though, remember when I talked about before with the file that had the convex? I've now said it both ways. I think twice concave, twice convex. It has the rounded side of the file. Why didn't I just say that? Remember when I talked about that and how getting in here was easy with that? This, you can use to hog out a lot of this material, but sometimes it can be tough because you are going to leave a hard edge or a corner. So having access to a file that has that rounded side is really good. Anyway, those are hand tools you can use for forming. Let's now cut and talk about how we're actually going to start doing this.